Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Test, Optimize, and Scale. Today is going to be an exciting marketing discussion. Have an Amazon expert, scales brands right and left. Is going to be able to talk about the ins and outs, what works, what doesn't, what he sees directly on client campaigns as the CEO, founder of AMZ Advisors. Have Mike Begg on the pod today. Mike, thanks for taking time to join.
Hey, Jason, thanks for having me. Excited to be here and share my knowledge with your audience.
Awesome. Awesome. As I talked about the excitement there, these marketer to marketer discussions are fun. Can sift through different answers. We've both seen things that, as mentioned in the intro, have delivered, have not. So it's going to be fun to learn more about the formula on Amazon here. And thought we'd start with your background. We like kicking off these episodes with guest stories. So thought we could begin there.
Of course, and I'm glad to start with that. I think I have a story that hopefully you guys find interesting. But out of college, I started working in consulting for Deloitte at the Big Four, and I kind of have a traditional background of how I ended up in marketing. But out of consulting, I realized that I really didn't like consulting. I think that was the biggest takeaway that I got from that. So I actually did real estate development. So I went from more of the operations side to now the finance side, construction side, which also has nothing to do with marketing. I worked at Sears, which is probably the first way that I started learning more about retail and products and started getting more exposure to it. My role within the company, we were doing a lot of different things at the time. Obviously, Sears was struggling as a company. The first thing I did when I came in was I was part of a team that was spinning off a real estate investment trust. This was kind of a big push to asset strip Sears to try to get as much cash to make the company last. That raised about $2 billion. From there, I started working on development projects, store closures, releasing, selling assets, whatever kind of came my way. And there were some interesting things that I started seeing from some of the deals. For example, there were a couple malls that we were in, D locations that the mall itself had closed, but we still had a store. And we had companies like like Amazon and FedEx coming in looking to buy the mall, and we were like, I was like, why are they trying to buy a mall? And I later learned that they were turning the malls into fulfillment centers. And that is kind of when Amazon started to catch my attention. From there, I started doing what's called Kindle publishing. It's essentially writing my own books or self-publishing books and then selling them on Amazon. You get royalties from that. And I started making money that way. That was my first venture into e-commerce. From there, we started, or myself and my partners, now in AMZ Advisors, started doing retail arbitrage. I'm originally from Connecticut. I don't live there now, but we hit every Walmart, every Target in the tri-state area, buying up everything we could on clearance and then putting it on Amazon and reselling it at retail. So we were essentially arbitraging the margin there. From there, we took the money that we were making and we started launching our own private label brands. So we started importing products from China. And the first brand that we built was a art supply brand, which was a unique experience because we were competing with Crayola. It's art supplies. That's our main competitor. And this was back in like 2014, 2015. The platform was a lot less competitive, Amazon being. And we were beating Crayola in a lot of the categories that we were selling in. And that's kind of what opened our eyes to these big companies don't know what they're doing on Amazon. And we saw the opportunity to build a marketing agency there, help them scale their brands, maximize their sales. And that's how AMZ Advisors was born. And now we're 8 years into business. We worked with over, I think, 300 brands at this point, generated close to $1 billion in sales. So it's been a pretty exciting journey.
That's awesome. Being able to start with that background, I heard real estate in there, finance, construction, but really focusing on what you were doing at Sears, work on the REIT, the Real Estate Investment Trust, and firsthand seeing the world of retail transform. And
Yeah.
I love how you pointed out, hey, my eyes really opened up to Amazon, seeing them at least purchase these big pieces of property, these malls,
Yeah.
replacing the old, moving into the new. You saw the opportunity. You hopped into arbitrage. I've dealt with arbitrage on the advertising side, where if you could buy traffic cheaper than you could sell it, that
Yeah.
margin becomes a business in its own. So, for listeners being able to find products, Mike, it sounds like you were able to buy and with marketing costs still have a margin after you sell. You
Yeah.
guys were so successful that you started building private label brands, looking for opportunities on where that could fit in. And I've had one Amazon marketer guest before. He told us a bit about how he searched for products to be able to arbitrage or to private label. I want to ask you about that a bit.
Uh-huh.
But having strides, uh, competing against Crayola, lifelong Crayola fan. I imagine they're not the easiest business to go against, but maybe they are. As you mentioned, a lot of the biggest brands don't know what they're doing on Amazon. So you saw that as the opportunity to then take that to other entrepreneurs, to do the marketing on their behalf, and to be able to scale these businesses accordingly. Uh, to start, how do you go about it? How do you find a need? How do you find a product? How do you find something to arbitrage or private label, and actively sell on Amazon?
Sure. So there's a few different ways to do the arbitrage side. The way that we were doing it, like I said, was buying things on clearance and then turning around and selling them. Essentially, at a very basic level, the Amazon selling app has a tool that you can scan the barcode and then see how the product is doing on Amazon. Not the number of sales, but you can see the bestseller rating or bestseller rank, which gives you an idea of how well it's selling within the category. Typically, anything around 10,000 is selling multiple units per day. So that's usually a good product to try to pick up. Um, when it came to researching from the private label side, that took a lot more work. We use tools like Jungle Scout, Helium 10, Zonguru now is another great one to kind of just search through categories and subcategories, looking for new product ideas, seeing what's coming out. Uh, you know, Talking to manufacturers back then when we were, really getting started on our private labels. Our manufacturers were in China, and now I do some work with manufacturers in Mexico. So it's that aspect has changed a lot. Um, but essentially it's, what's the price point on Amazon? How cheap can I get this? And then how can I figure out what my margin is going to be in between? The one consistent that has been true on Amazon since we first started selling back in 2014 is that the advertising cost has continued to increase over time. So it's gotten more and more difficult to arbitrage certain products or to even launch private label brands that are not uh, a consumable product or a product where customers are going to come back and buy the product again. That has made it more challenging for a lot of brands. And I would say that the products that I'm currently selling right now fall into that category. Many of my clients' products are consumables, and those we really enjoy working with because it's a great opportunity to attract customers, use a cost acquisition model, and then calculate lifetime value, and then from there be able to scale out. I mean, like basic marketing stuff. Those are great to work with for us. But I also have my own brand that is also consumable food products, and I just love those categories because if you make a great product, if you give a great customer experience, they're going to keep coming back.
Recurring revenue. That's what it's all about. And you were talking about the ad costs on Amazon, like many platforms, but specifically Amazon, really skyrocketing over the past few years. Where do you see traction now? Is it still there and just kind of eating into the cost per acquisition, the return on ad spend, return on marketing spend? Or are there other avenues that you're seeing produce at greater returns these days? And where does that development of the strategy really begin? I know some discussions, some panels I've been on, they want to just take you to one channel, but really the marketing discussion starts back here. So how do you put together a strategy, and what channels, what tactics are you seeing produce at the best levels today?
So the way that we usually approach it whenever we start with a new brand is we start at a big picture. Where does Amazon fit within your business model? I actually just got off a call with another client. Amazon is their only D2C channel. Everything else they do is distribution. So having a better understanding of where Amazon fits for many companies, it's their main sales channel. We have other clients where they do 90% of their revenue on Amazon. So other clients where it's 2% of their revenue is on Amazon. So where does it fit is the first question that we have. And then once we understand that, we can kind of start piecing things together. So again, funnels are the fundamentals, or one of the fundamentals of marketing, and Amazon itself has its own funnel, but Amazon falls within a broader funnel within your company. From the standpoint of customer acquisition, brand awareness, Amazon within your whole company is usually at the top. It's where people are going to find products. So when we start adjusting their perspective on how they need to look at Amazon, it becomes a lot easier for us to do our job, because then we can figure out the rest of the pieces. Once they understand that, Amazon's never going to be your most profitable channel, the cost of advertising continues to go up. It's going to continue to eat your margin. Your margins are always going to be lower on Amazon than other channels like your own Shopify or BigCommerce website or whatever. Then it becomes a question of, all right, how can we be as efficient as possible to acquire these customers and then capture them in some other form, get them to an email list, get them to purchase from our website, whatever it may be. And it becomes at that point more of a sustainable life cycle of a client, of a customer lifespan, because then we know we're bringing them through Amazon. Once they purchase the product, we're going to try to push them to the website. Once they get into the website, we're going to have them in our email list. And once we have them on our email list, we can put them into lookalike audiences, retargeting audiences, and start pushing ads on other channels. Likewise, on Amazon, there's DSP, which is their programmatic side, and you can start leveraging the customers that we're acquiring on Amazon to do other lookalike audiences and hashed audiences and whatnot. So it's really understanding the fundamentals of the company, where Amazon fits within it. And then from there, it's really just implementing the marketing channels they need to help them achieve the bigger goal that they're trying to get to.
And you see a higher conversion rate by taking these audiences to Amazon
100%.
first. And then, like you said, being able to introduce them to the marketing funnel there, maybe multiple touch points, the DSP, the demand side platform to buy ads. So I imagine you're accessing all different types of major media websites and apps
Yep.
by using that type of exchange. I'm always impressed by what Amazon's putting together in that side, on that side of things, with my ad background. I
Yeah.
mean, Twitch, they have all these different financial data sets that they're able to use. It helps on our investor campaigns. But you're seeing the highest conversion rate from Amazon.
100%. I mean, in our experience, we don't do a ton of work on Shopify. So I want to preface that first. But when we look at off platform websites, we usually see between 2 to 4% conversion rates, which are not great. When we look at Amazon, the average conversion rate on Amazon is about 8%.
Wow.
And when you have the right marketing, the right assets, your listings look phenomenal, your customer discovery is great, conversion rates can go up significantly. I mean, we have some clients that convert as high as 18%. And from that's an easy sell for us. Is if we can go out and acquire, 1 in 5 customers roughly, well, let's go spend the money. Like, that's easy. And yeah, I mean, conversions are significantly higher on Amazon than other platforms. The customer trust is there. The experience is usually there. You're using Prime. If you're using Prime, Amazon FBA to get the Prime badge, they're going to expect the product's going to arrive in 2 days. It's another trust sign. Consumers are looking for that. So there's so many reasons why it converts better. And a lot of it really comes down to familiarity and trust with the Amazon platform.
I'm an Amazon Prime shopper, almost to the point of addiction. I mean, it's several times a week. If I'm out shopping, I mean, why wouldn't I look to see if something's available on Prime and for a lower cost? If I'm on a brand's website, how long the shipping's going to take? I don't want to plug in my financial info, anything like that. I go right over to Amazon, and in under a minute, press a few buttons, I'm out. And I wanted to highlight that conversion rate aspect because I hear founders with misconceptions of it's going to cost me more on Amazon. I'm going to have to pay, this, pay that, the
Yeah,
Amazon fee, whatever it is. When really that conversion rate, I mean, that's the single most important number in the algorithm. If we're looking at impressions, clicks, conversions, that
yeah,
conversion rate really has the biggest impact on the cost per acquisition of each purchase, the return on ad spend. So I think that 8 to 18% makes all the difference, and it makes sense why that's the entry point into the actual lower funnel for you guys, and then you're able to go at repeat purchases to clients from there.
exactly. I mean, you pretty much, hit the hammer, hit the nail on the head. Uh, I think once we, and again, like you brought up the fees, you brought up the expenses, the cost, the objections that we hear. I hear these all day. But the point is, again, like when you can acquire these customers, it's going to grow your brand over time. Because not only are you increasing the opportunity for word of mouth marketing from one consumer loving your product and telling other people, there's so many other platforms now that just make money from reviewing products. Open box videos on YouTube. There's channels that make a killing there. Product review channels make a killing. So getting your products in the right place, getting customers to try it, the more customers you can have try your product, the better you're setting your brand up for growth in the long term. And I think that's the one thing that most brands don't consider is that, or I will say more advanced companies, companies that have executive teams, companies that have employees that are managing the process, understand this a little bit more, and they're usually easier to work with. It's the founder-led companies that tend to get caught up on that. It's like, the cost is so high. Like, how do I justify this? It's because they're not really grasping the big picture of how they're going to grow their brand through it. So,
Absolutely. Traffic, costs, especially if you're using advertising, which gives you that intentionality of, hey, I'm going to drive this many users to my listing, to my offering tomorrow. Sure, you can get PR, write
yeah.
ups, you can get all different types of influencers. You could have the peer-to-peer marketing occurring, which is ultimate. That is the ultimate form of marketing. But these are things that are outside of your control, where you can scale up that advertising. You could be competing against other advertisers. Uh, What about competition as a whole? I imagine it's something you look at during the planning, the strategy stages. But you have a listing, you have your products on Amazon, things are going well. How often is that interfered by competition? And when that occurs, what are the best ways to stay more relevant, point at more features, maybe adjust price, so that you're still getting those purchases above their presence?
So the main challenge with competition is that it's going to drive up your cost of advertising.
Mm,
If you're if we're both competing for an organic keyword like microphone, you and I each have our own brand.
yeah, yeah.
It's going to keep going up over time. More competitors are going to come in. The price is going to continue to rise. The one thing that you can control on Amazon is the cost of, or have better control of, is the cost of your branded advertising. So who's coming to my platform or coming to the Amazon platform and searching for, I don't know, Nalgene. I've got a bottle in front of me. So who's coming to the platform searching for Nalgene? Well, if they are searching for Nalgene, they probably have a high purchase intent for Nalgene. Other competitor products are going to be perform as well. So then the question again, going back to the funnel, going back to the bigger picture, is how do I create more people searching for Nalgene on Amazon? Now, this is how you're going to get around your competition. That is another piece of the funnel, and you brought it up. You brought up social media. You brought up PR placements, link placements, whatever it may be. Why not push all of them to Amazon? If you're going to create the brand awareness with all those efforts and you want to convert as many people as possible, why not push them to the platform that has the highest conversion rate? And that's the way that you're going to lower your advertising cost over time, at least your blended advertising cost, and then be able to be more aggressive on these generic keywords that you and I are competing on. So you'll have more profitable advertising at a better ROAS, acquiring more customers at a lower cost over time.
Mhm.
And that's the way that you deal with competition on the platform. It's not so much about the one-to-one competition. It's how do I just make everyone know my product more than they know other products?
What about pricing? Meaning, are there different price ranges that perform better on Amazon? Is it the 20 to 30, 20, $50 purchases? Is it more of 100, $200, several $100? I've heard different takes on this. And imagine there are some different strategies, some different mindsets around it. We always see it with food and beverage where it's, hey, here's a 12 pack, here's some type of combo, here's some different ways to structure it. When I do buy on a client site, I'm a sucker for different sales promotions where, hey, I could buy this true classic tee for, I don't know, $25, or I could get 6 shirts or whatever they're promoting now for 100. Is that present on Amazon? Is that important piece to the puzzle?
Yeah, so now you're getting into something really interesting. We're talking, in a way, I mean, price elasticity, but brand elasticity. Like, how much do consumers actually care about brand? And I think when we're looking at more generic stuff, they don't care. And that's where price point is pretty irrelevant. When we're looking at, what's a good example? Kitchen goods. The classic example on Amazon is a garlic press. Uh, it doesn't matter what the brand of my garlic press is. I just want the cheapest garlic press that's going to get the job done. And typically, what we'll see is that on generic searches like that, having the lowest price item is going to convert the best. The caveat being there, if you have a product that has a phenomenal number of reviews and the reviews are all really high, or the social proof, that may make the price point a little bit more irrelevant. But in general, on generic searches, price point, lower price point is going to win just from a conversion standpoint. Consumer wants to spend as little money as possible. When we start moving at higher price points, getting into luxury items, getting into maybe even cosmetic supplements, things like that, brand becomes more important. And that's where you can kind of get away with a little bit more pricing differentiation than what the market is currently averaging, for example. We work with some cosmetic brands that have a lot of brand recognition, and they're 2 to 3 times higher than what the cheapest product is. But because their product is known for being the best collagen, has the most social proof, it's known outside of Amazon. When you Google uh, about collagen, you find their brand. It makes it that much easier to be at a higher price point on the platform. So again, this is where we talk about the value of brand. We talk about how you're building outside of the platform and how it affects what's happening on the platform. Amazon has shifted more and more over time towards being more favorable to brands. But again, it comes down to what the consumer wants, getting in front of the consumer while they're in the consideration phase and are looking for different options, and trying to have as much brand awareness as possible at the top of the funnel to already have the name in mind when they get to that consideration phase. So I think that's kind of the way that I would look at it. Price, it's not a huge deciding factor, but if there's no differentiation between my water bottle and your water bottle, then everyone's going to be like, well, I'll just buy the cheap.
And what about cost per acquisition for ad spend? Does that favor conversions at any different price level? Is it like a $10 to $20 cost per acquisition on an ad campaign? And if you're selling under $30, you're going to run into some ROAS issues. Where if it's 100, $200 conversion, you're going to be in a safer place, and it's still not high enough to scare audiences away, given the
Yeah.
target market and their household income or net worth. Do you see any considerations like that when it comes to the advertising and the average order value?
Yeah. When we get to the consumable level, cosmetic supplements, again, food, uh, the entire, as we said, the entire model shifts to how do I increase customer lifetime value, and how do I, acquire the customer and arbitrage the difference.
Yeah.
Um, I would say that in that model, price point, having a higher price point is more important, because cost of acquisition for some protein brands specifically, that's always the one that's front of mind, is insane. I mean, you're looking at $25 cost per clicks on the Amazon platform. So if you convert at 10%, you're spending $250 on a customer acquisition. It gets really, really tricky unless you are able to convert at a really high level, unless you have people coming looking for your brand, or unless you can guarantee that you're going to have a long customer lifetime value. And unfortunately, nothing's guaranteed. The only things that you can do is control what you control. And the main thing that you can control is being in front of as many consumers as possible, trying to have them come to the platform searching for your brand, maximizing the conversion rate because they're searching for your brand, they're going to buy your product. And then you'll be able to lower your cost of acquisition as much as possible to make the arbitrage better over time.
Funny you mentioned protein. I got to place another order today to restock. And I think that speaks to what you're saying, is that that first cost of acquisition is actually less important to have a margin on, because the lifetime value is really where you're going to get the return. So
Yeah.
even if it was a break even for me on that first purchase, and I like having my protein packaged and pre-made just for my schedule, it helps. I've tried a few brands. I've continued with this one. They're not a sponsor of the show, so I'm not going to continue to point at them or mention their name. But either way, I'm a fan, and I continue to order them. I've tried different flavors. This one works for me. I'm hundreds of dollars in, if not more, and I've only been with this company for a few months. So even if they paid a break even
Yeah,
on the ad costs for me, the lifetime value, I imagine, is that much higher. And I think some founders need to really hear that multiple times for it to stick. But I
yeah.
think that's what you're pointing to a bit there. And imagine, as a marketing tool, even paying, for the full acquisition on the first run could still show great returns, especially if an individual's with the brand for years.
For sure. And I mean, it takes money. That's not protein specifically, and supplements in general. It takes money to get ahead there. But one example that we have right now is that we're working with one of the largest protein brands out of Mexico and bringing them to the US. And the cost of advertising between Mexico and the US is incredibly different. It's much cheaper down there than
Yep.
it is in the US. So they have much lower customer acquisition, and they've grown a lot faster in Mexico than they're growing on the US because the customer acquisitions are so much higher. And getting them kind of mentally over the hurdle of like, yeah, you're going to need to spend 5 to 6 times the amount of money you're spending in Mexico to get the same results. It's a big cash drain at first, but for us, it's one of the interesting challenges to, like, all right, number one, how do we be as efficient as possible? And number two, what can we do outside of what we're doing on the advertising to increase brand consideration or increase brand awareness, so that when people actually find our ads on Amazon, it will lower our cost of acquisition over time. So it's those categories are really competitive. They're really expensive, but for us, it's a really interesting challenge because we know when we get it right, these brands just fly. And we've worked with protein brands in the past that have really taken off from getting the Amazon platform correct.
Absolutely. And protein, I mean, I have friends that drink multiple bottles of that stuff a day. Uh, Want to learn more about your client? I'm glad I didn't point at that name too much. Definitely want to try that protein out. Scaling, it's working. Do you see entrepreneurs get into Amazon to private label, to arbitrage, or let's say to private level to build up a brand for exit? Have you
Yeah.
had any experiences of that? I know it's a hot topic. The guest we had a couple of years ago, Neil Twa, had a whole breakdown of this, but I find it to be very interesting. And so I just wanted to bring it up. If you have seen that, if you have any numbers or any
Yeah.
ideas, of, hey, here's how you take a product from A to Z.
Yeah. I mean, uh, the Amazon native brands going for sale or going out for an exit has been very popular, especially over the past 2 3 years. COVID really accelerated Amazon, really accelerated e-commerce, so it created a lot of opportunity. The Amazon aggregators came out; they were buying up a ton of brands. Some of them performed well. I mean, essentially, it was a bunch of finance guys thinking they could figure out marketing, and then a lot of the brands failed. So it's not really surprising. They realized that they needed people to actually understand what they're doing. But because of the financial climate right now and the economic climate, a lot of those acquisitions have scaled back. There's not capital available to a lot of these companies that were making the purchases before. That being said, there are plenty of people that make all of their living from building brands on Amazon. And we've worked with many of them that have gone out for acquisition. They've been acquired by a few have been acquired by the aggregators, a few have been acquired by private equity firms. So there's a lot of money, a lot of interest that's still in there and growing it. Now, if we were talking about numbers and like what you need to invest and what you're going to need to get there to make it a desirable acquisition, realistically, you need to probably be doing, from at least what I remember hearing from some of these aggregators and what they're looking for. They're looking for a 5 to 10 SKU catalog, doing somewhere between $5 to $10 million a year in revenue at least, with a good moat of social proof. So having significantly more reviews than the competitors that are out there, and having a larger share of the market that they're in. So those are like the basic numbers that they're looking for when they're going out there to try to acquire some of these brands, and it's a lot of what the brands are focused on building towards. But again, everyone's going to be different. A lot of those numbers have probably even shifted since the financial climate's kind of changed over the past year. But generally, that's what I've seen in the past.
Makes sense. Makes sense. And 5, 10 SKUs, 5, 10 million, picturing the EBITDA and some of the margins there. Are there funds, are there programs that you see investors get involved with? And I ask because I have some VCs investors that listen into the show, in addition to marketers and founders. Is there a lot of activity for that, or groups that you see using equity crowdfunding or different vehicles online to raise capital and have investors share in that upside, particularly a liquidity event?
The first one that comes to mind is Empire Flippers. They created over the past couple years Flippers Capital. I think they're calling it EF Capital.
Okay.
Sounds a little bit better, a little easier to say. And it's essentially a fund that's going out there and acquiring brands from their platform. It's led by usually some e-commerce veteran. And I think the fund sizes are on the smaller side. I think they're raising somewhere between 1 to 5 million per fund. And they've been launching, I think, 2 funds a quarter, or 2, entities a quarter, portfolios, I guess I would call them. So that's the one that comes to mind. I'm sure there are other ones out there. The aggregators were raising capital. I don't know that any of them are anymore. I have a friend that Thras.io was one of the big ones. I have a friend that got in as an early investor in Thras.io. They were the first one to hit $1 billion valuation. So I think he was pretty happy about that. I don't know if those companies are still accepting capital though. If they are, there's some interesting opportunities. I mean, Amazon native brands run a big risk in that they're fully reliant on the Amazon platform. I think that's one of the risks that a lot of investors don't consider. But again, there's still good opportunities there.
Very nice. Very nice. And for any founders, marketers listening in, like to ask some questions in terms of packaging your expertise, actionable insights they can try for themselves.
Sure.
If founders looking to launch on Amazon and wants to run a marketing campaign, any recommendations in terms of what they should test out? I know you were mentioning social proof and reviews. Didn't get to too many questions about influencers and other notable third parties that could validate a deal. I don't know if it's part of that or advertising or content, but anything you recommend testing out?
Yeah, of course. I mean, there's a lot of different things to test. The first thing that you're going to be looking at when you come to the Amazon platform is, how do I create the best images for my product? There's going to be a lot of split testing you're going to be doing around there. Generally, for the main image, the best thing you can do is kill as much white space as possible. Get your product to take up the entire frame as possible. That usually leads to the highest click-through rates on the platform, which is obviously going to have a good benefit for you in the long run. The rest of your images, you're gonna have to split test. What I usually recommend doing is some graphic designed image with text overlays explaining the product or the main benefits or the main features or the main outcomes the client's going to get from the product. Uh, that's on the design side. A plus content's another piece of it that you'll be split testing imagery there and copy. But the main copy piece you'll be split testing would be the product title. How are you going to test different ones there? Luckily, Amazon has a native A/B testing tool that you can use to test the different images, the different bullet points, titles, things like that. So you can really do the testing within the platform, which is extremely helpful. Um, and then from there, as you start building out the marketing efforts, I always, I talked a lot about how Amazon is about brand awareness. For me, you actually want to start the opposite way, and I want to be at the bottom of the funnel. I want to get as many people purchasing as possible. The sponsored product advertising is usually the main starting point for a lot of our brands. Is like, how do we get people that are already in market just to buy our product? That is the usual fundamental starting point, and then from there, I recommend building up the funnel. So how do I get consumers that are in market but looking at competitor products to consider my product? So I want to advertise on their product listings, or I want to advertise on the category that they're searching, or I want to advertise to the people that are in market and try to get them to consider my product. And then from there, I can take it a step further. How do I maximize the number of impressions for my brand? And that's moving over to sponsored display advertising, DSP side, and how do I maximize there? So again, building up the funnel is usually the way that you want to go on the advertising side. And then split testing your images, split testing your copy to try to maximize the conversion rates is going to be the best benefit. Maximize the click-through rates and the conversion rates are going to be the ways to get the best benefit out of the advertising that you're doing.
What if it's not working? What are the best approaches to optimizing? What if the audience, the messaging, anything about the funnel and what you're split testing isn't producing? What are the best things to do? How do you go back to the drawing board if it's not working right out of the gate?
If it's not working right out of the gate, we will usually look at a few different things. I mean, obviously, split testing is going to continue to go on. We're going to keep trying different images, keep trying different variations, different presentations. One good way that we try to push things, or we've pushed things in the past, especially for consumable brands, is creating we call it like a sampler product. Um, you know, Protein. How do I have 3 different flavored proteins? Can I create small packs of protein that I can get out to consumers to try the different proteins and see what they like? From the standpoint of conversions, again, if I create a variation listing with my 3 protein jugs on it and I create the one sampler pack with all of them, I can push on the advertising standpoint my low priced item, drive consumers to it. The low price is hopefully going to drive more conversions, and they're either going to like the product and then come back and buy other ones, or they're going to click it and then come to the page and see the other options I have for larger formats. So that's one way to try it. Another way could be images from the advertising standpoint. What you would want to do is cut back on the consideration phase and then try to maximize what you're doing at the bottom of the funnel. Trying to maximize visibility there, testing different combinations of search terms, getting customer input onto what they would be searching for. So a good way that we do this is with the PickFu platform. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but essentially what we do is we'll put up the images, we'll put up a product description, and we'll ask, like, what would you search to find this product? And then you can get real consumer feedback on what they would search, what they think of it, what they would change, what they would do differently. And that can help guide a lot of decisions on what we're potentially doing wrong on the listing or what we could be doing better. So those are the ways that we would probably start approaching it, from testing different ideas to get things going. Can I try it in a different format, or can I try it in a different variation, or can I leverage other products that I have to drive more traffic to this product? And then what am I actually getting wrong about what my consumer is searching for, or what my consumer is to this product? I'm trying to get more input from them there.
Visuals, formats, the smaller products. I think that's such a great way into the funnel, and like you said, stimulating peer-to-peer marketing and getting them to start buying again, and LTV being more important than the first lifetime value being more important than the average order value. What about scaling? What about when you get this all dialed? How do you take it up to the highest levels?
So we've been having a lot of success lately. Again, and I've already discussed this, but once we built out the Amazon funnel, once we have, bottom of the funnel ads, consideration ads, awareness ads within Amazon, it's how do I maximize the traffic outside of Amazon? One of the ways is the DSP piece. How do I start leveraging the other ad networks, start putting more placements there and just be everywhere? One area where we've had a lot of success with over the past year has been TikTok. How do we get visibility on TikTok? I mean, we have some brands that it's insane. They had a couple of videos go viral, and the next day they're doing $50,000 in sales, up from $2,000 a day in sales. So outside traffic sources, bringing them to the platform, that's another really big focus for us. And typically, the cost of advertising on TikTok is still pretty low compared to what you would be paying on other platforms from an acquisition standpoint. Influencer marketing is another great one. The product review stuff on YouTube is a form of influencer marketing. All of these sources we use them to push back to Amazon. And then from there, push more people through the funnel. We're going to convert higher. We're going to get more repeat purchasers, or the potential for driving more of that traffic to our Shopify store or whatever platform we're using to start building our list there. And that's the way that we really help brands scale. We're going to manage this funnel for you that fits within your larger company, and we're going to help you get the best results here. And that's going to lead to the best results over time, the most scale, the most sales, the most customer acquisitions, and it's going to make your brand known. And I think that's, at the end of the day, what most marketers are trying to do, what most business owners want. They want their brand to be the forefront of what people search for when they come to Amazon, or when they even go to a store. They want to be looking for the brand, and that takes effort, intentional effort. That takes a lot of brand awareness, and it takes time.
And that's really the goal. Don't get too caught up in the expenses on the way, as much as what you're saying. See it working here, look to incorporate into more channels, go off Amazon, scale it all up, take audiences back to Amazon. If it's paid TikTok, organic TikTok, whatever it may be, influencers keep finding more ways to become that brand name.
Exactly. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, it's easy to lose focus on what the end goal is when you start getting tied down into the financials of things. Obviously, you can't run at a loss, but at the same time, when you know what you're trying to achieve, which is maximizing customer awareness, maximizing customer lifetime value, creating the best customer experience, it becomes a lot easier to think of different ways to market the product or position the product to get people to where you want them to buy.
100%. 100%. Well, Mike, I've taken a full page of notes here. I'm going to be sharing this with my team, as well as some clients that are either doing Amazon on their own or looking to do more of it. Maybe there's even some intros can make to you guys at AMZ Advisors. But as we begin to wrap up the show, any final thoughts you want to leave listeners with? And what is the best way to get in contact with you, with AMZ Advisors, if they'd like to continue the conversation?
Yeah, I mean, I think the main thought that I want to leave them with is, again, just understanding where Amazon fits within your organization, and how you're using that to grow your brand. I think that's the most important concept that we've probably talked about. Again, like, a lot of founders get caught up on the platform being a cost center, but at the same time, it's a brand discovery center. And that's the main thing that you need to understand. The best way to get in contact with me is you can actually reach me directly in my email, mike@amzadvisors.com, or you can reach out to us on the website, amzadvisors.com. There's lots of different ways we help brands, the main one being on the Amazon side, but we also help with global expansion, Latin American expansion, and a lot of other aspects of e-commerce. So anything you need, I'm always happy to talk.
Awesome, Mike. And want to thank you again for taking time to hopping on the podcast here. It's been a blast talking marketing with you. Takes me out of my day to day, being able to talk Amazon It's going to change my interactions as a user on the platform as well here too. But I really appreciate you coming on here and dropping knowledge.
Thanks again for having me, Jason. I really appreciate it. And hopefully your audience found this valuable. So,
Awesome. I'm sure they will. Audience, want to thank you. Appreciate you tuning in here. Definitely reach out to Mike, and we will see you next time.